Hey everybody, my thoughts on Borderlands 2 as of the Steam free weekend, which it's currently February 8th as I'm recording this, so right in the middle of the free weekend for it. But here's the thing. You guys pretty much knew this was coming as soon as you saw that, hey, Borderlands 2 free weekend. I guarantee you expected it. And Borderlands 2 is the sequel to a game I couldn't stand. If you've seen my review of that, you know this. And you guys should know by now that I can't stand Diablo. And that's basically what Borderlands is. It's just Diablo with guns. The sole focus of these games is shoot stuff, get loot. That's it. That's the entire focus of the game. There's not any focus on storyline. There's no focus on characters. No. It's entirely on shoot stuff, get loot. So I find that the fundamental design of these games is just made to be boring. It's made to be tedious. And frankly, it annoys the living crap out of me. But Borderlands 1 also had other issues. It was a fairly bad PC port. It had just all sorts of things wrong with the way the guns felt and everything. And in the long run, it just ended up being a rather pathetic experience. Even the co-op was just awful. So Borderlands 2 comes along. Riding off of the massive success of the original. I have no clue why the original was so successful, because it is completely devoid of any shred of fun. Borderlands 2 comes along. And they did make improvements. I'm not going to deny that. It is a much better PC version. In fact, it's a pretty much fully featured PC version, complete with FOV slider. Wow! Gearbox actually gave a crap about the PC version this time around. It works well. The issues I had with the PC port of the original game, pretty much gone. This one runs well. It plays well for the most part, as far as bugs and glitches go. I mean, there are some here and there, but for the most part, it's fine. There's no real issues with the online connectivity or anything like that. In fact, it's pretty seamless, drop in, drop out. Works really well. The PC features are just fully featured, like I said. Fully rebindable keys and everything. Controls feel fine. So, at least they improved that. They made some slight incremental improvements here and there as well. I mean, there's more gear available. There's more character types. They threw in quite a few color palette options and a few different choices of face for the characters. So there's at least some improvements. They put more emphasis on the story this time around, which isn't saying much. The original game pretty much didn't even have a story. But all these incremental improvements are just that. They're incremental. They aren't the fundamental shift that this game really needs. You see, Diablo and its ilk, games like Torchlight, for instance, are at their core actually very shallow, because the entire experience is about just slaying monsters and getting loot. And that's exactly what happens with Borderlands and Borderlands 2. It's the same thing all over again. Slay hordes and hordes and hordes of generic mobs in order to get more loot. Woo! That sounds like fun. No, not really. But honestly, that's not even the biggest problem I have with Borderlands 2. If it were just that, I would say, bad game. Slightly better than the first game, but still pretty bad. Meh. No. This game goes a step further than that. It becomes worse than the original. Now, you may be sitting there, but they improved stuff. Yeah, they did. But they did one thing that instantly turned me off to this game. Even more than the fundamentally tedious, boring gameplay. Even more than the extremely pathetic attempts at improving stuff like skills, where each character still only has one ability, and there's a bunch of passive abilities that go along with that to whenever you level up. Whoop-de-doodle-doo. Oh, goody, you get badass tokens. That gives you a very slight bonus to insert generic stat here. Woo. Now, it was the humor. You see, Borderlands 1 was pretty sarcastic. It didn't really take itself very seriously, and it was never constantly shoving jokes in your face, but it just had this lack of seriousness about it that made it a bit easier to get into. It was still pretty pathetic, but it still was a bit easier to get into than most other Diablo-style games, which take themselves actually very, very seriously. But here's the thing. Borderlands 2 doesn't really have humor in it. When I played this thing, it was the equivalent of that guy. You know the one. The one who always tells really, really terrible jokes. The ones that are painfully unfunny. And yet, he seems to think they're the most hilarious thing on the face of the planet. You know, that guy with the really shit-eating grin who always tells these jokes and then starts nudging you with his elbow. That is what Borderlands 2 is. It is painfully unfunny. And yet it's constantly making these jokes like it thinks it's hilarious. Let's put it this way. When in the first 20 minutes of the game, I was confronted with not only a your mom joke, which, wow, that goes way back, and those were never funny to begin with, but anyway. Not only does it have a your mom joke, but it also has friggin' Butt Stallion. A pony made out of diamonds, and Handsome Jack names it Butt Stallion after you. Seriously? This is what passes for humor at Gearbox. Butt Stallion. Just, what? I'm at a loss here. I cannot comprehend how anyone finds this funny. Don't get me wrong, I like stupid humor once in a while. In fact, some of my favorite comedy movies are really stupid, like Kung Pao Enter the Fist. It's a really stupid movie, but it's funny because of the delivery. And that's the point. To do stupid humor well, you have to have proper delivery. And that is exactly what Borderlands 2 doesn't have. It's just like they saw these really, really terrible jokes and just threw them in there because they thought they were hilarious, but didn't do anything to actually deliver them. It's just terrible. And that's constant throughout the game. It's constantly making these incredibly stupid jokes, and they're headache-inducing. I'm just at a total loss here. I've never understood why people enjoy games like Diablo to begin with, where the entire game is designed to be tedious. If you like that, whatever, that's your prerogative. If you like the gameplay in Borderlands 1, you'll like the gameplay in Borderlands 2. It's the same damn thing all over again, just with some very, very slight changes. Whoop-de-doodle-doo. But that's not my main issue with Borderlands 2. My main issue is that games like this are coming out in an age where games are starting to become accepted as art. And we strive more and more to be recognized as a legitimate kind of industry. Because games, for the longest time, have just been seen as this incredibly immature, stupid thing. Games like Borderlands only perpetuate this. In fact, what does it say about gamers when you have games like BioShock Infinite and Papers, Please, dealing with really heavy themes? I don't care whether you like them or not. They deal with really heavy themes, and they do it pretty well for the most part. In fact, Papers, Please does a phenomenal job of it. But then you have this, which sells far more than either of those, especially Papers, Please, because that's an indie game, but from what I understand, Borderlands 2 may well be the highest grossing game that 2K has ever made. Well, released, I should say, because they didn't make it, Gearbox did. What does it say about gamers? What does it say about us? Think about that for a second. Think about that before you go back to your fart and poop jokes in Borderlands 2. Think about that before you go back to Butt Stallion. That's all I have to say about Borderlands 2. I'm frankly disgusted at it.